Well, hello YouTube, and welcome to another video on my channel. Today we are going to paint birch trees. Last week I had shared this picture on my channel and got lots of requests to share how I painted it. And today I'm going to do just that. Today I'm going to share with you all my tips and tricks to paint birch trees. We're going to paint these top two paintings. So settle in because we're going to get started straight away. I'm going to paint birch trees two different ways today, and I'm going to explain to you how I did the picture that I shared at the beginning of the video, and then I'm going to paint two pictures in real time with you. So for this, I have lots of water available. I have some hot press paper, some granulating watercolors, and also a nice big palette for me to dissolve my paint on. Now, for the first set of birch trees, I'm going to use a masking technique. What I've done here is I've taped off the edge of my paper with washi tape, and then I'm using plain old masking tape, and I'm tearing off a big piece, and I'm sticking it to my pants first a few times to make the masking tape a little bit less adhesive, and you want to stick it to your clothes a few times. You don't want the masking tape to be too sticky for this project. You actually want your masking tape to not stick fully to the paper, because with this technique, the paint will be seeping just a little bit under the masking tape, and it's going to help create that effect of the birch trees. So when you're doing this, make sure that you get lots of fibers from your clothing on the masking tape. Then tear that masking tape into lots of irregular strips. And you want some longer and some shorter, and it's okay. They don't all need to be like the full length of a tree. Again, these breaks in the masking tape, as you lay it down, are going to create some really cool effects. And the little cracks in the masking tape are actually what is going to create the effects of the cracks on the birch trees for you. So just trust the process and lay down, a bunch of strips of masking tape across your paper. Now, even there, see, I didn't have a full piece, but I can go back in and lay down another piece on top. And just fill up your whole page that way. You can also break little pieces off and stick one to the side like I've done here. And that will represent like branches that we will work with there in the future. One thing you want to keep in mind is you want to keep a little bit of white space near the edges of your tape. So as you see, like on the left and right side of my paper, I haven't used the masking tape right up against the washi tape. And that's because the white areas are where I'm going to paint next. So I've wet my paper now with just clean water, and now I am diluting some of my paint on my palette. Now for this, I'm using granulating watercolors, but you don't have to. You can use any color that you want to, and in fact, this project looks great when it's just in like a monochromatic tone, so you only need one color to do this project, and you really can use any color that you want, and it's going to look really cool. So here I've diluted my paint onto my palette. I've given it a minute to separate, and now I'm going in with a very light wash and painting the background of my paper. Now you want, for this first wash, you want it to be very diluted because we're going to put another layer of masking tape and another layer of paint on this painting first. So this first layer, you don't necessarily want it too dark because, again, here in a moment, we're going to be putting some more masking tape on top of it, on top of those white areas to create another row of trees. And this will create some depth and dimension in your painting and make it seem more like a forest. So once your paper is fully dry, after you put down that first layer of paint, you want to make sure your paper is fully dry, and then go in with a few more strips of masking tape, and you can overlap them a little bit and see what that effect looks like. Experiment. You can do this painting so many times, and it's going to look different every single time that you do it. So go ahead and lay down another layer. And then when you're happy with the arrangement of your second layer of trees, go back in with a thicker layer of paint and put that on the background in somewhat of a messy fashion. And again, you want to have some of that paint seep underneath the masking tape. So don't, this won't come out if you put your masking tape down too tightly. Now, once this layer dries, and you want to make sure that it dries fully, you don't want to have any puddles on top of your masking tape because it'll fall back on your paper as you peel it off. You can start with the tape reveal, which will be super satisfying, hopefully. And you can see now as I peel back piece by piece, you're going to see these birch trees come to life. So for this, we painted birch trees, or we're painting birch trees in like a negative painting fashion. So we're masking off the actual birch trees and then painting just the background. So, the birch trees, we're not really painting them. We're painting, the background behind them. And that's going to preserve the white space of the birch trees and also illuminate them. Now, once you've got all the tape peeled off, you may be very, very happy with your painting. I wanted a little bit more contrast. And so what I did is I went back in with my Derwent line maker in the color graphite, and I used it to define my trees a little bit, and also some of the little lines on the trees. Now, this is not a step that you have to do. And also you can use any color pen that you want, right? So I could have gone in and done this with like a pink fine liner or a blue one, or even like a lime green or a yellow or purple. I could have really gone like and taken this in like a stylized route. And I still might, now that I'm thinking of it, I might go back in with a brighter color pen. And I think that might look really cool. So anyway, you have options is my point. And so, you can go in and do some pen work. You can also, what you can also do is you can go in with some more paint. You can go in with your paintbrush and like a fine paintbrush, and you can add some more definition and detail. So all those little bumpy areas and stuff, that's okay. We can work with that. And those become like knots in your tree. So, and you don't have to be too exact. You can get as detailed as you want. You can just leave it as is. And then when you're satisfied with your line work, you get the wonderful joy of a second tape peel with this picture. And here we go. This is Birch Trees, the masking tape way. All right, so with the next painting, I'm going to share two more techniques that I use to paint birch trees. And these techniques were actually the techniques that I used to paint the painting that I shared in the video that inspired this one. Now for this piece, I painted it by painting the actual birch trees rather than the negative space. And I did that by painting lots of layers of light washes on the trees themselves. So like before, I masked off the edges of my paper just with some washi tape, and I'm using just one color again. You don't need a granulating color with this painting either, but if you do use a granulating color, you might want to provide yourself with a large mixing palette to dilute it with lots of water. When you do this with granulating colors and add lots of water to them and give them room to move around, the colors will separate. I'm going to take advantage of that with these paints today and add lots of water. The other advantage and cool thing about doing this is that you really don't waste any pigment. You see here, I'm dipping my my brush back into the water, and I want all that water and pigment because it's just going to provide more water for my pigment to swim around in. And you can see those colors starting to separate. And I'm going to be able to use that to my advantage as I start to paint my birch trees. So I'm going to go in with a very, very light wash of my paint. And this first layer, I mean, this is something to keep in mind. The key to painting this is layering. And so that's, I think, the main skill that's used in this painting, and the main skill that can be learned with this painting is layering. So like I said, start off with a very light wash. You can always make it darker. And we're going to start by making sure on this painting that we meet the edges with paint. So in the last painting, when we were painting the negative space, we didn't want to mask off the area between the painting and the border, because we wouldn't have created a border. We wouldn't have been able to. If we'd masked off that area, it would have prevented paint from going there, and we would have had a very long border. The painting would have seemed to have run off the edges. With this painting, because we're actually painting the birch trees, I've masked off the border, and I do want to make sure that that border stays there. And that's why I pushed the paint right up against the washi tape. I hope that makes sense. So, you know, painting in the negative, or painting the negative space, is actually the reverse. So this painting, we're painting the positive space, and because of that, we'll want to make sure that our edges and borders are covered. Please give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. Boy, and let me know down below if you can say it clearer. I think that was a lot. So anyhow, just go in with a really light wash of whatever color you're using, and you just want to paint stripes of paint. And you can also add some branches, as I've done here. And you want to think a little bit about your composition. As you're doing this, you'll want to leave some white space in between the tree trunks, because we will be going back in and doing some more layers of trees. And I mention this because you want to leave some white space, but don't stress too much about the composition, especially on this first layer. And I say that because hopefully you can see the compositional mistake that I've just made with the branch that I created. My brain has created like this M shape in the trees. Now, I'm not going in and trying to correct this. I'm not panicking. I'm not trying to remove it. I immediately recognized my mistake, but I'm not too worried about it, because I know what I plan on doing for the rest of the painting, and I'm going to be able to cover that up and work it into the painting, or it's going to be just fine, I think, at the end. So watch for that. And you know, you can do this with all sorts of different types of trees. Like, this technique is great for forests. You know, just again, that's what I mean. Like, this is a great painting birch trees is a wonderful painting exercise. It's a wonderful way to practice different techniques, layering, color combinations, monochromatic things, pen work. It's a real simple painting that you can really work on your actual watercolor painting skills with. And I enjoy that. And it also looks really, really cool. It's super impressive, and always comes out neat looking. And doesn't take a whole lot of time to do either. So yeah, the key point with this first layer here is you want to leave some white space in between the trees in the body of the painting. You want to make sure you cover up your edges here on the left and the right, your borders, and you want to use very, very light washes. And then once your first wash is dried, you can go in with this technique, which is commonly used to paint the bark on birch trees. So you can use a piece of a broken credit card or a gift card or something, flat side of something, and you can dip it into some paint and lightly scrape it across the tree trunk, and it will create a very organic looking bark, and you won't have to work too hard at it. And when you're using very light layers of watercolor, it will make quite a difference. Like, you don't need a whole lot more of pigment to create contrast, as you can see here. So I'm going in and I'm hitting my branches, and this is creating, also by using water on my credit card, it's creating little puddles of water and on my paper, sort of, and allowing the granulating waters to separate a little bit more. And it created a really cool effect in the bark itself. Now for the second layer, I'm going in with a thicker wash of paint, a darker wash of paint, as you can see. And that was easy to do because in the time that it took for things to dry on my paper, my paint dried a little bit on my palette and gave me just a thicker wash. And I'm going in and being a little bit more intentional. And you see, I covered up the area, that awkward area of the painting where those two branches met. And yeah, so you really have a lot. It's very forgiving. This technique, these paintings are very forgiving, and you know, they're always organic looking, and you want them to be organic looking. So with the painting that I'm sharing with you today, it differs from the painting that I did last week, because with the painting I did last week, I really didn't do too many layers. I didn't create too much depth in the forest. I was just kind of experimenting with my paints. I wasn't really trying to make a pretty birch tree painting. And so I my washes were not as light, and my washes were darker, and it created, my paint was thicker, and it created a darker birch trees. So anyway, they're all going to look great, you know, and I really love the way this painting turned out. I would like to paint it again. I would like to use different colors. And the other thing I think I would like to do is I would like to paint the masking birch tree painting again. And I would like to adding some of the green granulating watercolors near the bottom, you know, and maybe be a little bit more intentional about painting like a background forest scene. I think that might look cool. I don't know. Lots of experimentation, and the possibilities are endless. So, you know, I'm going back in with a credit card. You don't need a credit card. You can experiment with different techniques. Use this is a piece of watercolor paper that I'm using, just the side, and I really like how that came out. I'm going back in with a little brush to soften the edges, move the paint around, you know, make the trunk a little bit more defined. Finally, I'm going back in with a very fine brush to do some brush detail. So in this last painting, I used lots of different techniques, right? We, you know, we did light washes. We used brushing, dry brushing, credit cards. Use other materials to paint with and experiment with. You know, you will probably be really surprised and like the effects, and think of ways that you can use them. You know, again, I'm just going in with some detail for the branches. Yeah, making some more intentional bark marks, and hopefully, you know, making these kind of neat, stylized, yet, I don't know, realistic birch trees. I don't know. I think they have like a hint of realism. I think that's why birch trees are so cool to paint, right? It's like, yeah, unintentional and beautiful and just like nature, huh? So yeah, here's the tape reveal. The tape peel is so exciting and satisfying. With this also, you want to make sure that your paint is all dried so you don't get like splatters on your paper. And here we go. I hope you found some value in all these paintings. Please let me know if you did and which one is your favorite. And subscribe, give me a thumbs up before you go. And until next time, everybody, take good care. Bye.